The rain poured heavily over New York City. Cars rushed past expensive buildings while people hurried beneath black umbrellas. On a cold street corner stood an 18-year-old girl named Emily Carter. Her shoes were worn out. Her coat was too thin for winter. She held a small basket filled with handmade flowers. Fresh flowers, only $5. Most people ignored her. Some looked away. Others walked faster. Emily smiled anyway. She had learned long ago that life didn't stop simply because your heart was tired. Her father had died when she was 12. Her mother became seriously ill soon afterward. Every morning before sunrise, Emily cleaned a small cafe. In the afternoon, she attended community college. At night, she sold flowers on the street to pay for medicine. She barely slept 4 hours a day. Still, she never complained. Across town, inside the tallest skyscraper in Manhattan, 28-year-old Alexander Kingston, the youngest billionaire CEO in America, stared out the floor-to-ceiling window. He owned hotels, technology companies, luxury brands, private jets. People called him the King of Wall Street. Women dreamed about marrying him. Business magazines put his face on every cover. But Alexander trusted nobody, especially women. His former fiancée had left him after secretly selling company information to a rival. Since then, love became nothing more than a business transaction. That same evening, Alexander left work later than usual. His driver slowed near a traffic light. Suddenly, a little boy ran into the street chasing his puppy. A speeding truck came around the corner. Without thinking, Emily dropped every flower she had. She sprinted into the road. "Look out!" She pushed the little boy away. The truck barely missed her. Her basket shattered. Flowers scattered across the wet pavement. People screamed. The driver slammed on the brakes. Alexander watched everything through the car window. His bodyguards immediately rushed outside. "Sir, are you all right?" Alexander ignored them. His eyes stayed on Emily. Instead of asking for money, instead of crying, Emily quietly gathered the broken flowers one by one. The little boy hugged her. "I'm sorry." Emily smiled. "It's okay. Just promise me you'll always look both ways before crossing." The boy nodded. Alexander had never seen someone risk their own life for a complete stranger, especially someone who clearly had nothing. The next morning, Emily arrived late for work. Her boss frowned. "You're fired." Emily froze. What? "You've been late 3 times." "But my mother." "I don't care. You can leave." Her hands trembled. That job paid for her mother's medicine. Without it, everything would collapse. She walked outside holding back tears. Across the street, a black Rolls-Royce stopped. Alexander stepped out. Everyone nearby immediately recognized him. Phones appeared. People whispered, "That's Alexander Kingston. He owns half the city." Alexander walked directly toward Emily. She looked confused. "Excuse me. You dropped these yesterday." He handed her one of the handmade flowers that had survived the accident. Emily smiled softly. "You kept it. It reminded me of someone." She laughed. "It only costs $5. Alexander looked into her eyes. "No. It is priceless." For the first time in years, Alexander smiled. And for the first time in her life, Emily unknowingly stepped into a world where love, jealousy, betrayal, and unimaginable wealth would collide. Because someone else had been watching them. From inside a white limousine, a stunning supermodel lowered her sunglasses. Her name was Victoria Blake. She had spent 2 years trying to marry Alexander. Now she watched the billionaire smiling at a poor flower girl. Victoria's lips curled into a cold smile. "If I can't have him, neither can you." The next morning, Emily woke before sunrise. She quietly prepared breakfast for her sick mother. Only a bowl of oatmeal. 1 boiled egg. She smiled, pretending everything was fine. Mom, I found another part-time job. It was a lie. Her mother smiled weakly. I know you'll be okay. Emily nodded, but once she stepped outside, tears filled her eyes. She had less than $20 left. The rent was due in 3 days. Her mother's medicine would run out tomorrow. She whispered to herself, please, just give me one more chance. Meanwhile, Alexander Kingston sat in the conference room on the top floor of Kingston Global. Executives argued over billion-dollar contracts. But Alexander wasn't listening. His thoughts kept returning to the brave girl who had risked her life for a stranger. Finally, he interrupted the meeting. I want you to find someone. His assistant looked surprised. Who, sir? A flower girl. The room fell silent. Everyone thought they had misheard. 2 hours later, Emily was selling the few flowers she had left outside a subway station when 3 black luxury SUVs stopped in front of her. People immediately gathered. The rear door slowly opened. Alexander stepped out in a perfectly tailored black suit. Emily blinked. Why you? Alexander smiled. I've been looking for you. The crowd gasped. Phones were already recording. Alexander Kingston, the billionaire every magazine wanted, was speaking to a poor flower seller. I have a job for you. Emily looked confused. A job? My personal assistant. She almost laughed. Sir, I don't even know how to work in a big company. I've never worn a business suit. I don't belong there. Alexander answered calmly. I don't need someone perfect. I need someone honest. Emily stared at him. No one had ever described her that way. Just then, a red Ferrari pulled up. Out stepped Victoria Blake. Beautiful, elegant, famous. She walked confidently toward Alexander and wrapped her arm around his. Darling, who's this? Emily immediately stepped back. I'm sorry, I didn't realize. Victoria looked Emily up and down. Her old shoes. Her faded coat. Her trembling hands. A small smile appeared on Victoria's face. So, she's the flower girl. Alexander gently removed Victoria's hand. We're not dating anymore. Victoria's smile disappeared. But everyone thinks we are. I don't. For the first time, Victoria felt publicly embarrassed. She glared at Emily. This poor girl had become her enemy without even trying. Inside the company, rumors spread like wildfire. The CEO hired a flower seller. Impossible. She must be his secret girlfriend. Others laughed. She won't survive one day. Emily heard every whisper. She lowered her head. Maybe they were right. Maybe she didn't belong. On her first day, Emily accidentally spilled coffee onto important documents. The office froze. Several managers sighed. She's finished. But Alexander simply handed her a towel. It's only paper. Everyone stared in disbelief. Normally, Alexander fired employees for much smaller mistakes. Why was he protecting her? That evening, Alexander drove Emily home. When the car stopped in front of her tiny apartment building, he noticed the peeling paint, the broken stairs, and the flickering lights. Emily smiled awkwardly. This is my home. Alexander said nothing. For the first time in his privileged life, he realized how different their worlds truly were. As Emily walked inside, she didn't notice a black car parked across the street. Inside sat a handsome young man wearing a leather jacket. His name was Ryan Brooks, Emily's childhood best friend. He had secretly loved her for years. When he saw Emily getting out of Alexander's luxury car, his heart sank. No, it can't be. At that exact moment, Victoria's assistant called Ryan. I have a proposal. If you help separate Alexander and Emily, you'll become a very rich man. Ryan looked toward Emily's apartment. His fists slowly tightened. He loved Emily. But could he betray her? The next morning, Emily arrived at Kingston Global 30 minutes early. She wanted to prove that she deserved the job. She carefully arranged Alexander's schedule, prepared his coffee, and organized the meeting room. For the first time in days, she smiled. Maybe I can really do this. Meanwhile, on the 38th floor, Victoria Blake walked into a private office. Waiting for her was a beautiful, confident woman wearing a white designer suit. Her name was Sophia Reynolds. She was the vice president of Kingston Global. Brilliant, elegant, and secretly in love with Alexander for nearly 5 years. Victoria sat down with a smile. We have the same problem. Sophia folded her arms. The flower girl. Victoria nodded. If we fight each other, she wins. Sophia's eyes narrowed. So, we destroy her first. The two women shook hands. A dangerous alliance was born. That afternoon, Alexander was preparing for the biggest business meeting of the year. Inside a silver briefcase was a confidential contract worth over $5 billion. Only 5 people knew about it. Alexander, Sophia, his lawyer, his assistant, and Emily. Sophia smiled quietly. Everything was ready. An hour later, the contract disappeared. The entire company went into chaos. Security immediately locked every exit. No one was allowed to leave. Managers searched every office, every desk, every locker. Then, a security guard shouted, I found it. Everyone turned. The confidential documents were inside Emily's backpack. The room became silent. Emily's face turned pale. What? I've never seen those papers before. Sophia spoke coldly. The evidence is clear. Victoria smiled to herself. Everything was going exactly as planned. Employees whispered. I knew she couldn't be trusted. A poor girl stealing billions. How embarrassing. Emily felt tears forming. No, I didn't do this. I swear. No one believed her. Except one person. Alexander. He looked directly into Emily's eyes. Then quietly asked, Did you take them? Emily looked back without hesitation. No. I would rather lose my life than betray someone who trusted me. Alexander didn't look away. For several seconds, the entire room waited. Finally, he spoke. I believe her. Everyone gasped. Sophia couldn't hide her shock. Alexander. The documents were in her bag. Alexander replied calmly. Someone who risks her life to save a stranger doesn't suddenly become a thief. I trust my judgment. Sophia's expression hardened. If you're wrong, the shareholders will destroy you. Alexander answered. Then let them. Emily couldn't hold back her tears anymore. No one had ever believed in her like this. Across the city, Ryan sat alone in his apartment. On the table lay a thick envelope. Inside, $1 million. Victoria's first payment. All he had to do was break Emily's heart. Ryan looked at an old photograph of himself and Emily as children. He whispered, I'm sorry. Late that night, Emily stayed behind to clean her desk. As she walked past the security office, she accidentally overheard 2 janitors talking. I saw Miss Sophia enter the assistant's office before the meeting. The cameras on that floor suddenly stopped recording for 5 minutes. Emily froze. 5 minutes. The exact time the contract disappeared. Could Sophia be the real culprit? Before she could think further, a shadow moved behind her. A hand suddenly covered her mouth. Someone whispered into her ear. You know too much. Everything went black. Emily slowly opened her eyes. Everything around her was dark. Her hands were tied. A single light bulb swung from the ceiling of an abandoned warehouse. She tried to move. The ropes cut into her wrists. A cold voice echoed through the room. You should have stayed quiet. Emily looked up. It was one of Sophia's security men. You saw something you weren't supposed to see. Emily took a deep breath. I don't know what you're talking about. The man smiled. It doesn't matter. Tomorrow, everyone will believe you stole the contract and then ran away. Meanwhile, Alexander arrived at Emily's desk the next morning. It was empty. Her phone was turned off. Her apartment was empty as well. Her sick mother said through tears. She never came home last night. Alexander's face grew cold. He immediately called the head of security. Lock down every company building. Check every security camera. Find Emily. I don't care how much it costs. For the first time in years, the billionaire who never lost control was terrified. Across the city, Victoria received a phone call. It's done. Victoria smiled. Good. But don't hurt her. I only want her gone. She believed everything was under control. She didn't realize Sophia had her own plan. Sophia whispered to herself. If Emily disappears forever, no one can expose me. That evening, Ryan couldn't stop thinking about Emily. He looked at the $1 million check on his table. Then at the old photo of them as children. Finally, he made his choice. He tore the check into tiny pieces. I'm done. He picked up his phone and called Alexander. I know someone wants Emily to disappear. Alexander replied instantly. Where are you? 2 hours later, Alexander and Ryan met in an underground parking garage. The atmosphere was tense. Ryan expected Alexander to hate him. Instead, Alexander asked only one question. Can you help me find her? Ryan nodded. I'll do anything. Even if Emily never chooses me. Alexander looked at him for a moment. Then extended his hand. The two rivals shook hands. Not as enemies, but as two men trying to save the same woman. Inside the warehouse, Emily quietly rubbed the ropes against a sharp piece of broken metal. Minute after minute, her wrists bled. Finally, the ropes snapped. She slowly stood up. Just as she reached the door, it burst open. Two guards rushed toward her. Emily ran. She sprinted through the dark building. Her heart pounded. She reached an exit, only to find Sophia waiting outside. Sophia smiled coldly. You almost escaped. Emily stepped back. There was never any missing contract. You planned everything. Sophia took one step closer. You're smarter than I thought. But no one will believe a poor girl over me. She raised a small pistol. Emily froze. At that exact second, bang! A loud gunshot echoed through the warehouse. But Sophia wasn't the one who fired. A black SUV smashed through the warehouse gate. Alexander jumped out before the vehicle had even stopped. Emily. Sophia turned in shock. Alexander ran toward Emily without hesitation. Another gunshot rang out. A deafening gunshot echoed through the warehouse. Bang! Alexander threw himself in front of Emily without a second thought. Emily screamed. Alexander. For a brief moment, everything went silent. Alexander staggered backward. A crimson stain slowly spread across his white shirt. The bullet had struck his shoulder. He fell to one knee, but his eyes never left Emily. Are you okay? Emily burst into tears. You idiot, why would you do that? Alexander smiled weakly. Because losing money doesn't scare me. But losing you, I couldn't bear that. Sophia realized everything had gone wrong. Get them, she shouted. Her guards rushed forward. At that moment, police sirens wailed outside. Ryan had secretly called the police while driving with Alexander. The warehouse doors burst open. Police, nobody move. The guards surrendered one by one. Sophia tried to escape through a back exit. But Ryan blocked her path. It's over. She glared at him. You betrayed us. Ryan answered quietly. No. I finally stopped betraying myself. The police placed Sophia under arrest. As officers searched the warehouse, they found hidden surveillance drives and copies of the stolen contract. The evidence proved the truth. Emily had been framed from the very beginning. At the hospital, doctors rushed Alexander into surgery. Emily sat outside the operating room. Her hands trembled. She whispered, "Please, don't leave me." Hours passed. Finally, the surgeon walked out. The operation was successful. The bullet missed all vital organs. Emily covered her face and cried with relief. The next morning, Alexander slowly opened his eyes. The first person he saw was Emily. She had fallen asleep beside his bed, still holding his hand. Alexander smiled. "You stayed." Emily woke up and immediately hugged him. "You scared me. I thought." She couldn't finish the sentence. Alexander gently wiped away her tears. "I'm still here." Just then, the hospital room door opened. Victoria walked in. She looked at Alexander. Then at Emily. For the first time, she saw the truth. Alexander had never looked at anyone the way he looked at Emily. Victoria lowered her head. "I owe you both an apology. I wanted Emily gone. But I never wanted anyone hurt." She turned to Emily. "I'm sorry." Emily remained silent for a moment. Then simply nodded. "I forgive you." Victoria smiled sadly. "Take good care of him." She walked away, accepting that some loves cannot be forced. But peace did not last. Across the ocean, in London, an older man watched the news. The headline read, "Kingston Global's CEO survives assassination attempt." The man slowly removed his glasses. His name was Richard Kingston, Alexander's estranged father. A billionaire even more powerful than his son. He had disappeared from Alexander's life 20 years earlier. Now, he whispered, "So, my son has finally found someone he truly loves." He pressed a button on his desk. "Prepare my jet. It's time to return to New York." But Richard wasn't coming to bless their relationship. He had already arranged a marriage between Alexander and the daughter of another billionaire, a marriage that could unite two business empires. And he would do anything to make it happen. 3 days later, Alexander was discharged from the hospital. His shoulder was still wrapped in bandages, but the first place he wanted to go was not his mansion. It was Emily's small apartment. He arrived carrying a paper bag filled with groceries and medicine for Emily's mother. Emily opened the door and froze. "Alexander, you should be resting." He smiled. "I promised myself that after surviving, I'd stop wasting time." Emily's heart beat faster. As they shared a simple dinner, Alexander looked around the tiny apartment. The old furniture, the cracked walls, the laughter Emily shared with her mother despite having so little. For the first time in years, he felt more at peace here than in his luxurious penthouse. Quietly, he said, "Emily, I've been in palaces. I've eaten in the finest restaurants. But this feels like home." Emily lowered her eyes, blushing. The next morning, a private jet landed in New York. Richard Kingston stepped out. His presence alone made executives nervous. Within an hour, he was sitting in Alexander's office. Father and son looked at each other in silence. 20 years of distance filled the room. Finally, Richard spoke. "I heard you risked your life." "For a poor girl." Alexander answered calmly. "Her name is Emily." Richard ignored the correction. "You will end this relationship." Alexander's expression hardened. "No." Richard slid a folder across the desk. Inside was a photo of a beautiful young woman. Elegant. Intelligent. The daughter of one of the wealthiest families in Europe. Her name was Isabella Laurent. Richard said, "Our families signed an agreement years ago. You will marry her. The future of our empire depends on it." Alexander closed the folder. "My future isn't for sale." Richard stood up. "Then neither is your inheritance. If you choose Emily, you lose everything." Without another word, he walked out. That afternoon, Emily received an invitation to a charity gala hosted by Kingston Global. She hesitated. I don't belong there. Alexander smiled. You belong wherever you're treated with respect. He handed her a beautiful midnight blue dress. It's not about the dress. It's about the woman wearing it. Emily smiled shyly. That evening, the ballroom glittered with crystal chandeliers. Business leaders, celebrities, politicians. Everyone turned as Alexander entered, with Emily on his arm. Whispers spread instantly. That's the flower girl. She's actually with him. Then, the grand doors opened once more. A graceful woman in a silver gown walked in. Isabella Laurent. She approached Alexander confidently and kissed him lightly on the cheek. It's been a long time. Emily's smile disappeared. Alexander stepped back politely. It's good to see you, Isabella. Richard watched from across the room. Everything was unfolding exactly as he had planned. Isabella turned to Emily with a warm smile. So, you're Emily. I've heard a lot about you. Emily forced a polite smile. It's nice to meet you. But deep inside, she wondered if she could ever compete with a woman who seemed perfect in every way. As the orchestra began to play, Isabella extended her hand toward Alexander. Would you honor me with the first dance? The entire ballroom waited. Richard smiled confidently. Emily quietly took a step back. She believed Alexander would choose the woman who matched his world. Alexander looked from Isabella to Emily. Then he made his decision. He walked past Isabella, straight toward Emily. He gently held out his hand. May I have this dance? The ballroom fell into stunned silence. Emily looked into his eyes. Slowly, she placed her hand in his. As they stepped onto the dance floor together, Richard's smile vanished. Far across the room, someone secretly recorded everything on a phone. The next morning, the video would explode across social media, and their love would become the biggest story in America.